Mahabharata, Chapter 24, Indraprastha. Duryodhana was furious. Not only were the Pandavas alive, but now the mighty Drupada had become their ally. Remember that the Kauravas lost to Drupada first when they fought them on Drona's orders. Drupada's army was belligerent. The Kauravas could not defeat them. Only Arjuna and Bhima could defeat them, and now they all belonged to one side. Duryodhana wanted a new plan to defeat the Pandavas. He assembled Dhiritarashtra, his father, Karna, Shakuni, and Dushasana, and started debating on their next course of action. He desperately said, "We must find a way to defeat the Pandavas. Come on, all of you, we must think of a way. Why don't we bribe Drupada and ask him to go against the Pandavas? Or we can use the fact that the Pandavas married Draupadi in unison and poisoned Drupada's mind. Or we can try to bring jealousy between the sons of Kunti and the sons of Madri." As a reminder, the 5 Pandavas were born to Kunti and Madri. 3 of them, Yudhishthira, Bhima, and Arjuna, were born to Kunti, and 2 of them, Nakula and Sahadeva, were born to Madri. Therefore, the 3 sons of Kunti and the 2 sons of Madri were stepbrothers, and Duryodhana suggested that they use this as a reason to create a divide within them. Duryodhana continued, "Or if we can somehow kill Bhima, just Bhima alone, the other 4 Pandavas will become weak. Arjuna's skill is useful only when Bhima shields him. Or we can ask some women to talk to Draupadi and confuse her. We can get her to think that Pandavas married her together for immoral reasons. Father, we should do something. Anything. What can we do?" Karna spoke before Dhiritarashtra could respond. "Duryodhana, the Pandavas cannot be defeated by such means. They are united. Draupadi has accepted them as her husbands. Drupada will be loyal to them. The only way we can defeat them is by attacking them up front, by attacking them now. Let's just assemble the army and go and fight them." Dhiritarashtra responded, "Son, I would like to listen to the advice of Vidura, Bhishma, and Drona before making any decision." The 3 wise people were assembled in council. Bhishma spoke, "King, it is by great fortune that the Pandavas are still alive. The people love them. They are your brother's children. Give them half the kingdom, and both your sons and Pandu's sons can live in peace. That is the morally right thing to do." Drona agreed with Bhishma and asked Dhiritarashtra to give half the kingdom to the Pandavas. After taking the advice of elders and wise men, Dhiritarashtra asked Vidura to go to Panchala and asked the Pandavas to come back to Hastinapura. Duryodhana was angry with this decision, but he was helpless. Vidura went to Panchala and related the message to King Drupada. Drupada was suspicious of the intentions of Dhiritarashtra, but he left it to the Pandavas to decide. Yudhishthira asked Sri Krishna for his opinion, and Krishna suggested that the Pandavas go to Hastinapura and make peace with the Kauravas. After taking Drupada's and Krishna's blessings, the Pandavas with Draupadi and Kunti travelled to Hastinapura. They were welcomed by a great cheer by the people. Once they entered the kingdom, all the elders like Bhishma, Drona, and Kripacharya blessed them. Dhiritarashtra addressed the Pandavas. Dear sons of Pandu, I am so glad to see you. My brother's sons are like my own. It is by God's grace and your path of Dharma that has brought you back alive. Go to Indraprastha and build your kingdom there. Our ancestors, Pururavas, Nahusha, and Yayati, ruled the kingdom from there. That was our ancient capital. It is unfortunately now in ruins. Renovate the forest and make it your capital. You shall have half the kingdom. Let there be no bad blood between you and your cousins. May the Pandavas and the Kauravas live in peace. The Pandavas gladly agreed. They went to Indraprastha, which was a forest and deserted region. They burnt down the forest and built a vast kingdom with mighty forts and beautifully architected buildings. They named their capital Indraprastha and lived there as kings with their wife Draupadi and mother Kunti for 30 long years. Many wise men, Brahmanas, sages, rishis, kshatriyas frequently paid their visit and respect to the Pandavas. The Pandavas became popular for their virtuous conduct and high morality and rich values. Protected by the might of Bhima and the dexterity of Arjuna, Indraprastha was never in danger of any attack from their enemies. Yudhishthira's popularity grew in those 30 years. Let us pause a moment to reflect on 3 points. 1. That there were many incidents that happened in those 30 years. We will listen to them during the course of this narration. The second point is that this is by no means the end of the story. The crux of the Mahabharata, which is the famous Kurukshetra war, began only after those 30 years. The third point, an interesting one, is the age of the characters in this story. When we think of Yudhishthira becoming the crown prince, we think of him as being in his 20s probably. When we talk about a young person like Bhima or Arjuna fighting battles, we picture them being in their 20s or 30s. Anything older than that would probably be considered middle age today. The point to note is that in the era of the Mahabharata, people lived a much longer and healthier lifespan than we are used to seeing today. When the Pandavas married Draupadi, Yudhishthira was 39 years old. When the Pandavas started living in Indraprastha, Yudhishthira was 46 years old. They ruled in Indraprastha till Yudhishthira was 76. It was only after that the famous game of dice took place and the Pandavas retreated to the forest for 13 years. When the Kurukshetra war started, Yudhishthira was 91. Let me repeat it. The day when Mahabharata's famous Kurukshetra war started, Yudhishthira was 91 years, 2 months and 9 days old. Bhima was 90. Duryodhana was also 90. Arjuna was 89. Nakula and Sahadeva were 88. At that age, they were strong, resilient, and powerful. They continued to live on for many more years. Much of this physical strength and longevity were attributed to their lifestyle, the purity of the environment, and the type of food that they consume, all of which are in terrible shape in the present day. Back to the story. The Pandavas ruled in Indraprastha and the Kauravas ruled in Hastinapura. There was no reason for conflict. Everything was fine. peace was restored. Or was it? Duryodhana had half a kingdom, which is like saying he owned half of a multi-billion-dollar company. He wasn't satisfied. He wanted everything. He was jealous of his more powerful cousins. The Kauravas were not contented with what they had, and that resulted in much pain and agony. Doesn't it sound weird that a guy who owned half an entire kingdom was not contented? If we think about it, we will see that none of us are ever contented with what we have. The reason, again, is that our yardstick or comparison is not with someone less fortunate. It is with our own percentile. Like Duryodhana, we compare our prosperity with someone who has more than ourselves and fuel our desire. You may say that it is natural to compare ourselves with our peers. It is indeed natural, but remember that it is our mind telling us that it is natural. If we train our mind a little and practice the same comparison with a little more wisdom, we can experience greater peace and contentment. For example, we can slightly alter the comparison percentile. We don't need to go overboard and compare ourselves with beggars. Even if we look at average middle-class families, we can understand how fortunate we really are. The people who follow dharma and live virtuously are happy and contented in any environment or situation life puts them in. For example, the Pandavas as young children grew up in the forest with no comfort. As teenagers, they lived in Hastinapura and went to Drona's school. Here, they lived like princes with all the comforts. After the Wax Palace incident, they were again in poverty, begging for food every day, but they lived in peace. On their return from hiding, they were now kings, again lived happily. Happily? How was this possible? How could they live peacefully with or without comfort? We go into great misery when we lose a job. Well, we don't even have to lose a job. Even the fear of losing a job makes us miserable. The source of our misery is the fear of losing something we are attached to. The source of the fear is the attachment. When we let go of the attachment, we automatically feel peaceful, irrespective of the situation. The details of how to let go of the attachment will be covered in detail in the chapters pertaining to the Bhagavad Gita. For now, before we get into all that, we need to understand a few more characters and hear some incidents that happened in the 30 years that the Pandavas ruled in Indraprastha. Well, even before that, the most central and influential character in the Mahabharata has just surfaced in the past few chapters. Krishna. We have heard the name Krishna a few times now, but who was he? What was his significance in the Mahabharata? Was he really an incarnation of Lord Vishnu? We will listen to an introduction of Krishna in the next chapter.